The Rules Committee will come to order. I want to begin by extending congratulations and welcome to everyone for joining us for first time streaming of our Rules Committee hearing, and to say that we are very enthused about our goal of working together in a bipartisan way to deal with the challenges that our country is facing. I'd like to begin by introducing our new members of the Rules Committee who've joined us. We're very pleased that 4 new members of this body. Of course, Mr. Sessions, who will sit right here when he arrives, and Mrs. Fox, whom you all know very well, is here. But we have 4 great new members. We have a gentleman from Lawrenceville, Georgia, Mr. Woodall, who worked for John Linder when he was a member of this committee, and we all know that. And Tim Scott has joined us as well. Where's Mr. Nugent? Is he? Oh, he's getting sworn in. So Tim Scott is from North Charleston, South Carolina, and we're very, very happy that he's a member of the committee. And from Winter Park, Florida, Daniel Webster. Yeah, and he's a distant relative of Daniel Webster's as well, so we're very, very happy to have him. And I mentioned Sheriff Nugent, who, after he gets sworn in, will be joining us. It's now up to us to begin with the adoption of the committee rules, unless you'd like to be recognized. Mrs. Slaughter? Absolutely.
Mr. Breyer, I want to say you all it's well known that you and I don't always see eye to eye, that I
don't remember that.
Greatly respect your experience here and your wisdom. We thank you very much for all of that. We thank you for working with us for the past 4 years. We look forward to meeting all of your new members, welcoming them here. Look forward to working with them. And, of course, I hate to even mention history because you're a much greater historian than I, but I want his new members to know what an extraordinary committee this is. This was established in 1789, right after swearing in Philadelphia. It's the oldest committee in the House of Representatives. It has such a wonderful history. All the civil rights legislation, all the incredible legislation moving us forward came through this committee. We all feel quite honored being up here to serve. Many of our colleagues have made it pretty clear to us that they wouldn't be here for anything in the world. But I think I can safely say for all of my friends here that we consider it a great honor to be here. We look forward to getting to know you better and to working with you. And for my friend, Mr. Dreyer, if I may, I'd like to make a small presentation to you from our side to tell us that we appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
We congratulate you for taking that.
Thank you very, very much. Well, I appreciate it very much. So shall I take it out right now? And it looks kind of like the one that's here, but it's a little darker. It's a little darker. So we have 2 gavels. Don't get too close to this one.
No,
you know, I mean, I know you've had experience.
Here,
in fact, let me put this one over here now, okay?
Okay.
And thank you very much. And let me join in extending appreciation to you for your great service on this committee. And it's my hope. Well, you began by saying that we don't always see eye to eye. It's my hope that we'll be able to have agreement on the things that we have proceeded with. We'll obviously have some disagreements, but I will do everything that I possibly can, and I know my colleagues will as well, to create a climate which we can ultimately get to agreement on a number of issues. I also want to say that I'm very pleased to see Messrs. McGovern, Hastings, and of course Mr. Polis, who desperately wanted to remain on the committee. I know that
here he is.
I'm happy that he is here, and he and I actually agree on more than a few issues, and I look forward to having him on the committee, and maybe even on occasion as an ally on some issues that we have.
We'll see about
in agreement. Well, I'll let you all hash that one out, but it won't. Whatever you all hash out, it won't in any way deter my attempt to try and make that happen.
And we will certainly be after your members as well.
Oh, please.
To persuade you with our eloquence.
Oh, yeah, we will look forward to that. It's now in order for us to adopt the rules. I know that a lot of people have busy schedules for this evening, especially these new members, and so let me just say at the outset that we have made only one change to the existing rules with regard to votes in the committee. To comply with the new House rules, we will make all votes available electronically within 48 hours of a hearing. And now we will have a motion from Mrs. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Rules Committee adopt the proposed committee rules for the 112th Congress.
Without objection, the proposed rules will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. If there's any discussion of the committee rules or any amendments to the rules. Mr. Hastings.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment. It's marked Amendment Number 1, and I move that the proposed rules for the committee for the 112th Congress be amended in the form that I have at the desk. The amendment would ensure gavel-to-gavel coverage of all meetings, and that video is widely available and accessible to the public via the majority website. And with the Chair's permission, I'd like very much to proceed to have a few words to support the proposition. The Chair has been the proponent widely of cameras in the Rules Committee. I do believe that it will work better here than it has in the judiciary in America. Just for purposes of history, I was avant-garde about cameras being in courtrooms. And over time, I came to recognize that it was more than a serious mistake, the way that it has been treated by the media. The public has a terrible misperception of the entirety of what transpires by virtue of that. And I did find over the course of time that people would prep, lawyers would play to the camera, and it had a deleterious and does have a deleterious effect. I don't believe that will be the case here. Like you, we've been proponents of making the committee more transparent by positive posting of more documents to the website. Ms. Slaughter saw to it that we made transcripts more accessible. I know I've gotten them from the reporters who do much too hard work here that goes ignored by many of the members, but I've gotten them statements prepared overnight. And by specifically inviting the press, as you have, to cover our meetings. We're prepared, I believe, in the minority to support cameras in the hearing room as long as there are a few reasonable rules in place. And we believe that the proceedings in this room should be as open and transparent as possible. Therefore, we request that all proceedings be streamed live and archived by and on the committee's website.
Well, I thank the gentleman for his very thoughtful remarks, and say that I want to join in expressing appreciation, as my friend always does, to the recording clerks here who do deal with the challenge of exchanges that take place and all, and keeping the record. And we appreciate the work of all of the staff that makes it possible for us to work. I think it's a very thoughtful amendment, and I'd like to say that I think it's a great idea, and I'm in support and would urge my colleagues to support the amendment of the gentleman from Fort Lauderdale, Mr. Hastings. Is there any further discussion? If not, the vote occurs on the gentleman's amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. And the motion is agreed to. And the motion is agreed to. Are there further amendments? Mr. Polis.
Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. I move that the proposed rules for the committee for the 112th Congress be amended in the form I have at the desk. The amendment would change the committee rule to require that the chair include in the report on any rule an explanation of any waivers granted to the legislation. As you know, sometimes the exception becomes the rule. It has certainly been the practice of our chair and also you in your prior chairmanship to include explanation for any waivers. And I know that in the 110th Congress, Doc Hastings proposed that that would be codified. We at that time did not choose to, however. The Democrats did follow that during their 4 years, and I know that you did during your previous tenure as well. And I think we're at the point in requiring the explanation of the waivers, where by including it in the rules, we can, build mutual trust and simply institutionalize this practice, which I think is a good practice, to describe the explanation of waivers in the committee reports. And I'm honored to put this amendment before you.
I thank the gentleman. Let me just say that you've heard the gentleman's motion, and I will say that I'm very supportive of it. It's a proposal that I think is very worthy of including, and I think the gentleman has a thoughtful amendment here, and I would urge my colleagues to support the Polis amendment. Any other discussion? If not, the vote occurs on the Polis amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there further amendments? Mr. Hastings.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment marked amendment number 3, and I move that the proposed rules for the committee for the 112th Congress be amended in the form that I have at the desk. The amendment would require that any bill or substitute amendment that is reported out of this committee be accompanied by a cost estimate from the Congressional Budget Office. In my view, and in the view of a substantial number of members that I've spoken with, it will ensure that members of the committee know the estimated cost of every bill that they vote on. Now, there's been a lot of talk, Mr. Chairman, on both sides of the aisle about the deficit, and rightly so, in my judgment. In fact, just a little while ago, the now majority leader, while presenting a document entitled Delivering on Our Commitment, Mr. Cantor wrote to his Republican colleagues, including most of you, that Republicans came to Washington to eliminate the deficit. Eliminate it. It's now up to, everybody knows, the debt clock is running in 14 trillion. And this is exactly what this amendment is aimed at. How can you eliminate the deficit if we are up here reporting out bills that we don't even know the cost estimate for? This amendment will ensure that the best resource, and I believe the new members will come to this view, and I heard you on the floor earlier in your discussion with the former chair, now ranking member Slaughter, in the discussion regarding this matter, that the Congressional Budget Office, to the extent that one can predict, is the best resource that we have for predicting budgetary impact. And so that information should be a part of us before we vote on matters. And clearly, in my view, it's a fiscally responsible rule that will help keep this committee focused on the deficit on every occasion that we meet. So if the 112 is going to make a serious attempt at getting our fiscal house in order, we must begin here today adopting this rule. And I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, tomorrow and all of next week, we will have a much more robust discussion by a substantial number of members. But my prediction for you is that we will pass out a rule here at some point without having the CBO score. And most of us know what CBO scored the healthcare measure, that it would allow for $149 billion in deficit reduction. I believe we need to do much more than we are doing here in Congress to address these problems. And I believe the American public has been misled by a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, with reference to the problems that we are having. We've been taught in the last 35 or 40 years not to have to sacrifice. And where we are now, and in a few minutes, as that debt clock continues, all of us are going to learn that we're going to make sacrifices whether we want to or not. Ms. Slaughter and I were born in an era that was protracted sacrifice. Out of that group of people came what is described.
You're putting Mrs. Slaughter in your category? I can't believe that.
Mrs. Slaughter and I were born in a period
Can't believe it.
right in the smack hard dab of the post-29 depression. And I do believe seriously that she knows, as I do, and some few of you may have heard your parents talk about, that there were desperate times. And we retooled this nation in what has now come to be described as the greatest generation. I believe we can do better. But I don't think we can do better by exempting measures that need to be faced up to. And I don't think we can do good at all by simply not allowing for the only nonpartisan group here. If you had me to score something, I'll score it my way. I told John Kasich one night on the floor, the budget then was however much. And he made the second best speech that I've ever heard here in Congress on the floor regarding the budget. And when he finished, I walked up to him, I told him, I said, young man, that was an outstanding speech. He's now the governor of Ohio. But I said, the difference is you want to spend it on what you want to spend it on, and I want to spend it on what I want to spend it on. And we laughed and talked about that for the years that he remained here. And all I'm saying to you and to the members here, if we want to get a real good start, then we ought to have CBO in the forefront and not just our calculations and miscalculations that are done in a partisan fashion in most instances. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy. Let me say I completely concur with the notion of ensuring we have CBO scoring, and I will say that it is our goal to continue to pursue regular order, as we've said from the outset, and in so doing, we will have the CBO scoring that will come from committee reports forward to us as we proceed with the work here. Of course, I'm happy to yield. Will I have it available for the health care measure? Well, I mean, we are proceeding with the one sentence measure tomorrow, as you know, on that, and we're going to have a hearing on that. We're having a hearing on that. We're having a hearing on that. Well, today the Congress convened, and so the answer is, will we have the CBO score on the one-sentence bill? And the answer is, I don't believe that there will be tomorrow. But I will say this, that as we proceed with the work that will follow, which is the replacement provisions, we clearly will be going through regular order in committees, and the CBO scoring will come forward then. And so let me say that I strongly support the thrust of the gentleman's amendment, and I do believe that as we proceed with regular order, we will have, in fact, an opportunity for CBO scoring to be made available. But I believe that it would be a mistake for us at this juncture to tie the hands and prevent this committee from having the flexibility to move forward. And so I mean, obviously we all know, as I regularly say, and Joe Maney helped put this line together for me, we both want to get the economy going by creating jobs, and we want to reduce the deficit. And the best way for us to do that is to make sure we put into place policies that create economic growth. And so what I will say is I'm going to urge a no vote on this amendment at this juncture, saying that we obviously want to do everything that we can to make sure that we are able to comply with it, but we don't want to, at this point, tie the hands of this committee as we proceed. Of course, I'm happy to yield.
Chairman, the fact that it's a one-sentence bill, is that going to minimize the impact that it's going to have on the deficit?
I'm saying that we are proceeding. Well, you know what? Why don't we have that debate tomorrow? We will.
I'm sure we will. But
we can have this
we
debate
won't have the CBO score, and that was the point I was making.
Well, let's get to tomorrow and see what happens. The vote occurs on the Hastings. Of course, I'm happy to yield, and it's nice to welcome Mr. Sessions here, who in just a few minutes after we complete reporting this out will be designated as the Vice Chairman of the Rules Committee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I'd like to engage the gentleman, Mr. Hastings, just in a question, even though I know that we've talked about what the vote may be, and that was in trying to prepare behind your thinking? I know you were very succinct to say the bill that comes to us. Would that mean in any way amendments if someone brought something that you would like to see that done too? Because that would have a tremendous impact on the way we would deal with any of the witnesses about cost provision. So I'm not trying to delve into your brain. I'm trying to know more about the direction you really want to come, about whether we would anticipate that if somebody had a big idea, would we expect they'd have a CBO score? That would have significant impact upon CBO. I'd engage the gentleman. I appreciate the help.
I think the gentleman raises a rather legitimate point, and it argues, if nothing more, for us to not proceed rapidly in any of these matters, as consequential as they are. And toward that end, I would think that when a person presents an amendment, if we have the CBO score to the base bill and the substantive measure that's being undertaken, that person would have contemplated, and we would be in a position to make the argument that their amendment either is outside the scope of CBO or within. You know, the other thing that you're doing, and we'll do that some more tomorrow too, is placing an awful lot of responsibility in the Budget Committee in this Congress. And it'll be interesting to see this Budget Committee and the appropriators as we proceed in regular order. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say that obviously we strongly support the thrust of the gentleman's amendment, and as we proceed with regular order, we do believe that we will have CBO scoring in most every case, but I think that it would be a mistake for us to tie the hands of the Rules Committee at this juncture, so I'm going to urge a no vote. Any further discussion? If not, the vote occurs on the Hastings Amendment. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye. Aye.
No, no.
I ask for a recorded vote, Mr. Chairman.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Sessions?
No.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Mr. Woodall? No. Mr. Nugent? No. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Webster? No. Ms. Slaughter?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. Hastings?
Aye.
Mr. Poland? Aye. Mr. Dreyer?
No.
Chairman,
Clerk will
on
report the
that,
total.
There are 4 yeas and 7 nays.
And the motion is not agreed to. Are there further amendments? Mr.
Chairman.
McGovern.
I'm trying to figure out which way to look into these cameras now that you have them in the.
They're looking at you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You hardly notice them.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about having a medical exam. Mr. Chairman, I move.
I don't want to see the results of that.
I move that the proposed rules for the committee for the 112th Congress be amended in the form that I have at the desk. The amendment would ensure that any bill, substitute amendment, or self-executing amendment that is before the committee would be available for members to read for at least 24 hours before the committee would vote on a rule related to the legislation. And this would give members one full day to read legislation that they are voting on. And if I can have a second to speak on it a little bit, I would say that throughout the health care reform debate, we repeatedly heard about the 72-hour rule and having time to read the bill. And as you can imagine, after all that rhetoric, we were surprised to see that the Rules Committee was exempted from the new rule providing 24 hours to see text before a committee markup. Another disappointing feature of your new rule is that you have the ability to waive the so-called 72-hour rule in order to move a bill without even one day for members and the public to read it. So what we are simply asking is that we have one day, just one day, to read the bill before voting on legislation in this committee. When we passed health care reform, we were heavily criticized by Republicans on process, when in fact we followed every rule that was put in place to protect an open and transparent process. For example, Democrats held 79 bipartisan hearings totaling 100 hours. 181 witnesses testified, 239 amendments were offered, of which 121 were Republican, were accepted. We held 3,000 health care town halls and public events, and the bill was available for more than 72 hours before the House voted on it. But we are not asking for you to live up to that standard, which some of you criticize. What we're asking for here is just one day to read the bill during the Rules Committee.
Well, I thank the gentleman for his amendment, and I will say again that I agree and will assure the gentleman that we will do everything that we possibly can to ensure that we provide an adequate opportunity. But as the gentleman knows, this committee has to meet on occasion under emergency status, and I believe that while we will do our best to ensure that that happens, I think that it would be a mistake, again, to tie our hands at this juncture, and so I'm going to urge a no vote on the McGovern amendment. Is there any further discussion? If not, the vote occurs on the McGovern amendment. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No, on the pin
As
chair,
for
the
roll
noes
call.
have it. The clerk call a roll.
Mr. Sessions?
No.
No. Mr. Fox?
No.
Mr. Woodall? No. Mr. Nugent? No. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Webster? No. Ms. Slaughter?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. Hazley?
Yes.
Mr. Polis?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
No. Clerk will report the total.
On that, there were 4 yeas, 7 nays.
And the amendment of Mr. McGovern's is not agreed to. Are there further amendments?
Mr. Chairman, just as a form of a question, since that amendment was rejected, a 24-hour notice, would you be open to a 12-hour, giving us 12 hours to read the bill, or?
Well, let me just say that at this juncture, I mean, I'm pleased that we had bipartisan support for 2 of the amendments, and I believe that it would be a mistake. We will do everything that we can to have it even more than 24 hours, but I think it would be a mistake to in any way tie the hands of this committee. As you know, the responsibility to move the agenda is a very, very important one, and I can assure you that in most every instance, the 24 hours will be complied with. We're going to do our doggonest to make sure that happens.
So I guess that's a no, right?
So we will do our doggonest without tying the hands of this committee to ensure that we provide adequate notice to the minority and the majority members of the Rules Committee.
Gentleman Yield.
Yeah.
I'm happy to recognize the gentleman.
Thank you. I don't have any idea if the gentleman is in reference to the repeal, what is known as the repeal bill that we'll be doing, but it's been on the
No,
website.
I'm not, that's,
Just anything that may happen.
no, when the other committees get 24-hour notice to be able to read the bill before they take committee action on it, I'm simply saying that, not with regard to the one-line bill that we're not going to have a CBO score on, and we're not going to know what the implications are, bill that you're talking about. But what I'm talking about here is, if the Energy and Commerce Committee reports out a bill, why can't those of us in the Rules Committee have 24 hours to be able to read the bill? That's all I'm saying. Other committees have that right. Why can't we?
I
That's all.
appreciate that. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
no,
make sure
yeah,
that we were not in
no,
reference to the
no,
first bill
no.
that will be
The
done.
first bill, we're just concerned about, we don't know what we're voting on because there's no CBO score. Yeah.
Well, the gentleman, who has the time? Mr. McGovern, do you
I
have the
think
time?
Mr. Dreyer does.
I'm sorry. Let me just say that obviously, as you know, we have the 3-day layover rule, which before it gets to the floor, it will be doing that. We will have that opportunity for members to see legislation, and I just think again the notion of tying the hands of the Rules Committee at this juncture, and I'm not going to talk about any past record at all. But I will say the notion of tying the hands of the Rules Committee, I think, is not in the interest of this committee. So are there further amendments? Mr. Polis.
Will the gentleman yield on for some time?
Happy to recognize the gentleman.
This became very topical during the health care debate, as my colleague from Massachusetts mentioned. And the chairman, then the ranking member, I think, was very convincing in this regard, not only internally in this body, but I think with regard to the American people's perception of the health care bill. There's certainly policy differences that people had depending on their ideologies. But beyond that, I think there was consternation with regard to the procedure. Now, what aspect of the procedure? Not the fact that the majority of the health care bill had been there for 6-9 months and we all had read those 700 or 800 pages, but the fact that there was 200 pages or so, and I remember you had it stacked, right in front of you that said this was literally just given to us, and here we are being asked to vote on it, and we didn't know what it was. So
I think that was actually the cap and trade bill, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was a 300-page amendment that was handed to us at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was still warm when it was taken off the press, and that's what created the hue and cry and the fact that the American people expended so much time and energy and effort focused on reading the bill. And so that was literally at 3 o'clock in the morning that was presented.
yeah, I think it actually it happened on both bills, if I recall. I was hopeful that that the chairman would take some step to correct that, if not with a full 24 hours, perhaps with whether it's 6 hours or 3 hours, so it doesn't go into the next legislative day. Otherwise, we could be back in this very same position, not reflecting well on your party, I might add, where we're given something that's a couple hundred pages and asked to vote on it a few minutes later without having read it. Now yield back.
Well, let me just say, I will provide an assurance to the members that we have the 3-day provision for legislation that's reported from committees, and I will make a commitment to minority and majority members that we will do everything that we possibly can to ensure that every member of this committee has as much time as possible before we proceed with the consideration and deliberations in this committee. And that's a pledge that I will make. I don't want to put an absolute time frame on it, and I can understand that you all would like to do that. I don't want to tie the hands of the committee, but that's a personal commitment that I'm making, that I will do everything that I can to ensure that that happens.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that commitment. And again, just for the new members here, what I'm requesting is not unlike what other committees have. And what just happened when you generously agreed to Mr. Hastings' amendment with regard to the cameras is you basically kind of put us in sync with the rules of the other committees in this Congress. And so that my proposal was simply to do that. But I guess we're not at that point. We can agree on that. So.
Right. Let me just say again, we all know the uniqueness of the Rules Committee, and that is the goal of making sure that we move our agenda, and that is the responsibility of this committee. Democrats and Republicans alike recognize that, and that's why it is essential that there be a modicum of flexibility. And that's why I'm saying that I will make a personal commitment that we will do everything to get language to members of majority and the minority on this committee just as early as we possibly can. So we are now we have to move to adoption of the final package here then. Mr. Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know what discussions have taken place, but in the spirit of the things that we've discussed about the ground rules about how we might forthrightly operate, look at each other in a moving forward fashion. In the past, we have had some discussions about statement of administration policy or how they viewed the bills that we were working on. And I don't think that we can tell the administration what to do, but I would like to state to the chairman and to the ranking member that I think it's always equally good for us to hear back a statement of the administration about what they perceive the nature of the bill is, what the president and the administration believes, a position that they would take so that we can adequately do that. And I know that maybe in the last year or so, perhaps 2 years ago, there were some questions as we engaged in that about what does the administration think about a bill. I would hope that the continuing dialogue between you and the gentlewoman, Ms. Slaughter, would hash that out to where during these 3 days that we would anticipate of them seeing the bill, that at some point we could give notice to the White House or their correct person who might be a legislative person to give us that. I think it would be important moving forward.
As the gentleman knows, we in most instances do get the SAP, the Statement of Administration Policy.
We do.
I think it's very good and important for us to have that input that comes from the administration.
Administration policy versus the CBO discussion that we
Yes,
had.
sir.
CBO works for Congress.
That's true.
CBO doesn't work for the administration. in spirit, I agree with you, and as you well know, I've raised that question an awful lot. Do we have the position of the
And
administration?
yes, sir, and that's what I was alluding to.
Very occasionally we have,
Well,
in Republican and Democratic
Absolutely.
administrations. But I take the gentleman.
So let me ask, are there any further amendments? Any further amendments at all? If not, the vote occurs on the motion of the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to, and we now proceed with the designation of a vice chairman. And Clause 2D of Rule 11, adopted by the House, provides that the committee chairman designate a vice chairman to act on his behalf during his temporary absence pursuant to the rule. I'm proud to designate the Honorable Pete Sessions of Dallas, Texas, as vice chairman of the Committee on Rules. So congratulations, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you, Dave. Congratulations.
No amendments?
And, yeah.
We need to give notice first.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let me say that obviously the issue of subcommittees and subcommittee size and ratios, there is no change from the previous Congresses on that, and we now have a motion from the gentleman from Dallas.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Rule 5C of the rules just adopted, I move that each of the two subcommittees during the 109th Congress, 112th Congress shall be comprised of 5 majority members and 2 minority members.
Now, we have not had time to consult with majority and minority members on the composition of the subcommittees, so without objection, we will propose any appointments to these subcommittees until the chair, we will postpone any appointments to these subcommittees until the chair and the ranking member has had such time to consult with members and each other. I thank the gentleman for his motion. Without objection, the staff on both the majority and minority, the question on the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Paying chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The amendment's agreed to. Without objection, the staff on both the majority and minority of the Committee on Rules is approved. And without objection, the committee staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the rules adopted by the committee for the duration of the 112th Congress. So with that, thank you all very much. We look forward to meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, where we will proceed with consideration of the debate on the health care issue. So without objection, the committee stands adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louise. Thank you.